This is a previous podcast replay. Turn your annual income into your monthly income with David Neagle, episode 313. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I am coming here. It's now a little bit over a week after the Law Firm Growth Summit has ended, and I was blown away by the 3 days that we provided with the Law Firm Growth Summit. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm the host. I could not believe how well we pulled off this event. And it's not me that I'm patting on the back. It is our amazing speakers and our sponsors and the staff here at on my team that has made this happen and has made it truly an amazing experience. And if you missed it, well, that is too bad, because it was probably the best virtual conference that you will have been able to attend in the legal community. Now, there's still some opportunities that you have to participate or make up for lost ground if you missed it completely. So normally I would be doing a solo episode today, but instead I decided that I want to continue the tailwind of this event, and I want to bring you a replay of one of the sessions that we had. So we had a few keynote speakers. One of them is a world-class internationally known coach. His name is David Neagle, and a lot of lawyers that I've come into have coached with him at some point or another. And these are people who are now teaching other lawyers how to be successful and things like that. So he definitely has the goods, and he brought the heat. I mean, he just gave us a session that was mind-blowing, really, really impactful stuff to understand the inner workings of your mind and how to overcome mental barriers to be able to unlock your full potential. And I wanted to share this with you. Now, I want to share it with you for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I want to give you a taste for what we had at the event. Now, if you attended, then you get to review. You get to listen to it again, even if you didn't buy the recordings. But that brings me to number two, which is if you missed the event and you listen to this session, you say, well, if this is the kind of stuff that we had at the event, then maybe this is worthwhile for me to check out. So we have the recordings from the Law Firm Growth Summit 2021 that just ended. Those recordings are on sale right now. All you got to do is go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com/recordings, lawfirmgrowthsummit.com/recordings, and you can purchase those recordings and start attending those sessions immediately. Now, David Neagle was kind enough to share something with us at when he did his talk. So I'm going to share it with you here. And he gave out the Compassionate Conversion Sales Bundle with accompanying audio teaching and Overcoming Objections worksheet. It gives you a step-by-step method on how to master the sales conversation and significantly increase your conversions. And you can get it by going to compassionateconversion.com. And when you go there, use the promo code GROW, GROW. So we will link that up in the show notes, but if you want to go and download that and sign into that and get it for yourself, it's yours absolutely free. And I'm just going to give David a plug here for that product and share it with you here on the podcast. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to replay this keynote, let you enjoy it, and appreciate what we had at the event. And once again, you can definitely sign up for the recordings if you missed it by going to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com/recordings. Now, next week, I'll be back with a solo episode. Once again, we're going to go back to our usual scheduling and programming here on the podcast. On Thursday, you'll have a guest interview, and we're going to continue to bring you. We have an amazing lineup of guests. We're fully booked out for like the next 3 or 4 months with guests, so I'm super excited about the fact that we're ahead of the game, and we've got some really, really good content coming your way. Now, before I jump into the keynote from David, I'm just going to take a moment and share with you some words from some of our sponsors, and then you can tune in to David Neagle. Here we go. Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profitwithlaw to learn more. This podcast episode is sponsored by Legalese Marketing. No buzzwords, no jargon, no BS, just results to make your law firm grow. That's Legalese Marketing. Legalese Marketing is a full-service marketing agency for lawyers by legal experts and digital advertising specialists. Their goal? To help your firm stand out in a competitive marketplace with personalized solutions to help your law firm attract the clients you want, backed by the systems to make it all work correctly. Visit profitwithlaw.com/legalese to learn more. This podcast episode is sponsored by Noda, powered by M&T Bank. You went to law school to be a lawyer, not an accountant. Take advantage of Noda, a no-cost IOLTA management tool that helps solo and small law firms track client funds down to the penny. Enjoy peace of mind with one-click reconciliation, automated transaction alerts, and real-time bank data. Visit trustnoda.com to learn more. Terms and conditions may apply.
I hope everybody really gets a great benefit from what I'm about to share, but I'd like to ask you to start off by doing something. If you would write down on a sheet of paper the largest income you've ever earned in 12 months, and then look at that number, because here's the question that I have for everybody. How would your life change if your annual income became your monthly income just like that? Like suddenly it just became your monthly income. And the reason that I asked this question, I've asked this question to thousands of people all over the world, is because I had this experience a long time ago in my life. I had no idea what I had done to do it, but it put me on a journey of about 7 years of studying to try to figure out how could this actually happen in a person's life when prior to this happening, there was absolutely no evidence and no logical reason that it should happen. I was a high school dropout. I had 2 years high school. I had no business education, no formal education, and I was struggling tremendously. And all of a sudden, one day, my circumstances changed dramatically, and I knew that I had done something to change it. I just didn't know what I did. When I learned, I decided that I was going to spend the rest of my life teaching other people how to do this. And I learned some pretty astounding things, both from a mindset and from a practical sense and strategy, is to how do you make business move forward, especially in times like we're having right now. When COVID first happened, I was sitting around, I was watching the television. We were kind of all watching this come down last March. And I was thinking, the biggest problem that we're going to have currently, especially with business, is that everybody is so programmed to the understanding of how business interacts, how we interact with the business in our life, how it comes in, how it goes out, what are all the standard practices. And literally the foundation is actually being changed, which causes a great amount of insecurity in a lot of people because they're not really understanding how can I shift that when the only foundation that I understand is to do business, especially in my own industry, in the exact way that we've been doing it for years. But here's the truth. The truth is that whatever situation shows up in life, there's always a way to move around it or through it. But the question is, how do you have to be able to think to do that? So let me give you a little bit of teaching around something as far as how the mind works so that we can understand this a little bit better. And then I'll get into some practical ideas that you literally can apply. This is called the stick person. It was created in 1934 by Dr. Thurman Fleet, who was working with a bunch of students, and he was trying to teach them the idea of how the conscious mind and the subconscious mind worked and interacted with the actions that we take. And he realized that there was a major problem, that when he started to teach this, nobody had a visual concept to work with. Therefore, it was very difficult. When he would talk about the mind, they were thinking about the brain. The mind is not the brain. But it was extremely difficult and confusing for most people. So let me just give you a short idea of how this works, because I think it'll make a profound difference in your understanding of not only how you think, but to how to change your thinking in order to get the results that you're looking for. So the top part of the head we're going to call the conscious mind, and the bottom we're going to call the subconscious. And of course, this is the body. Here's what the conscious mind can do. The conscious mind can think, it can reason, it can imagine, it can accept or reject an idea, and really our greatest power lies there, which is our ability to choose, meaning that we can logically think or critically think about something, and then we could choose whether we want to accept that information or reject it, whether we want to act on that information or we don't want to act on it. Now, the subconscious mind is very different. It's our 2 million year old brain. It's been programmed for a couple of 100,000 years, and it's specifically designed to just keep life moving forward. It's not designed to make you happy. It's not designed to make you wealthy. It's not designed for any of the creature comforts in life. It's just designed to find a pattern that keeps you alive and productive, and then moving along that pattern. So here's what it can do. It can't think. It cannot evaluate. It can't imagine. It does not have the ability to reject an idea. That means that any information that goes into it becomes fixed in the subconscious mind, and it becomes fixed until it actually forms a habit or a belief in the way that we think. But this is the part that is profound. Prior to the age of 7, this part of our mind doesn't exist. The conscious mind has not developed yet. So this actually looks like a fishbowl prior to the age of 7. From the moment of conception to 7 years old, it's like a fishbowl. Now, that means that all the information you're being exposed to is going into your subconscious mind. It's becoming fixed as patterns and beliefs and values. And then as we start to approach 7 and we start to grow beyond that, we start to develop a conscious mind in which we can critically think. But here's the danger part. Because all this information is programmed in our subconscious mind before 7, it literally is telling us how to think about what we're experiencing. So we have senses. We can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. Those senses are constantly looking outside of us. It looks at our results. It looks at our circumstances. It looks around in our environment. It feeds back this information into our conscious mind, and this is the what we're actually seeing outside of ourselves. So when we're observing the problems with COVID, when we're observing the problems that are happening within our business itself, when we're looking at the amount of money that we make or how we make it or how we're not making it, all of that is coming into the conscious mind. But the conscious mind is not what's thinking about this from the perspective of taking the information independently and asking ourselves, what does this mean? It's the subconscious mind that's telling the conscious mind how to think about what we're experiencing. Now, what does this mean and what's the impact of it? When you have a crisis of any kind, I mean, in normal life, this is a major problem. But when you have a crisis of any kind, how we adapt to our world unconsciously so that we can actually move through our world every day is all highly programmed in the subconscious mind. If you think about driving a car, when you learned how to drive a car, you had to pay attention to the road, you have to learn how the wheel moves, all the gadgets in the car, the pressure on the pedal and on the brake, watching in your mirrors, looking in the rearview mirror. You were all hands and feet, and it was a very odd experience. But then when you did it thousands of times over and over again, it became a totally unconscious process, to the point that most people can get in a car and drive to a place that they go to on a regular basis and not even remember the trip. We could be on the phone, we could be searching for something on the radio, we could be having a conversation either on the phone or with somebody in the car, and not even really paying attention to what we're doing, but the subconscious mind is actually driving that car. Not only is it driving the car, it's paying attention to everything it needs to pay attention to outside of that window. Well, it operates like this for every single thing that we do in our life. And here's something that most people don't know. In our subconscious mind, we have also been exposed to all of our beliefs around money, around work, how we earn money, if we want to increase money, what it means to have more money, what it means to have less, and how we actually earn that money. So now we have two challenges going on. We have a COVID crisis, we have a crisis going on around the world, which really suggests that making money, doing business the way that we've traditionally done it, is going to be more difficult. Does that mean that we can't do it? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that it's more difficult. Everything that we would normally do or think about is literally changing, because the main thing that changed was how business and money's actually being distributed. Typically, when I would speak like this, I would be on a stage in front of a few thousand people somewhere in the world. Now we're doing it through Zoom. We're doing it through cameras. We're doing it through technology. The business is still moving, but the delivery system has become very different. Does that mean that you can't make as much, or that you can't make more, or you can't reach your dreams? It does not mean that at all, not in any way, shape, or form. But it's how we think about it that's actually going to determine what literally happens as far as an outcome in our life. In your subconscious mind, we have something called a financial set point. And I'm going to pull up a little chart here so I can kind of demonstrate what this looks like. Because literally, this is what determines how much money you make in your entire lifetime and whether or not it actually increases or it decreases. So here's the deal. From little children, based on who raised us, how we were being exposed to all of the information that created the how we think, we have something that's called a wealth story. A wealth story is specifically how you heard, learned, and were taught about money, about wealth, about income, about people that have a lot of money, about people that don't have a lot of money, and it creates a story in our mind. That story also becomes a set point right here. This usually determines how far a person can go as far as wealth in their life, how much they can make at a maximum. Now, as I go through this, think about this. I asked you to write down the biggest income that you've made in 12 months, and I want you to think about how would your life change if instantly, like this month, okay, that income turned into a monthly income. Because here's something that is the truth. Every person that's listening to this right now, you have the ability to turn that number, that 12-month number, into a monthly number, and you have the ability to do it this month. Now, it doesn't matter to me whether you believe that or not. I'm asking you to keep your mind open and follow through as I teach this, because at worst case scenario, when I'm finished speaking, you're going to find it intriguing enough that you're going to want to know more how this could actually be possible for your life. So we have this number, this idea of how far we can go, but it doesn't stop there. We also have something called a poverty story. A poverty story is how you experienced poverty as a child, what you heard about it, the stories that you heard about it. Perhaps you observed it, and as you observed it, people interjected information into your subconscious mind about what that meant, how it happened, what were those people doing, how are they suffering, how did they get there. All of that's going into the subconscious mind. Now, the other thing is that these stories generally happen by observation and not so much by literally direct communication, although it can be by direct communication. If you heard any judgment around wealthy people or people in poverty, you would also store that into your subconscious mind. It would be like a footnote of something that you heard when you were little, not even thinking that it meant a lot. It may mean a lot if you had a direct circumstance or a situation in your life where you interacted in some way with wealth, either positive or negative, and the same thing with poverty, either positive or negative. But the majority of people in free nations, and I say free nations because if you get into third world countries, it's not that this doesn't work, it does, but we would be flipping it around because you would be talking more about a poverty story as a norm than anything else. But in free countries where people are prospering, the place that we literally kind of call home is what we call a need story. Now, what is a need story? Well, it's really interesting because the values that we live by, that we hear, that we hold in high esteem all over the world, have something to do with this idea. Don't take more than you need. Don't use more than you need. But little children, they're not programmed with the idea. Little kids, they want everything. They're like, I want 2 swimming pools, I want everything that they can see and touch. But parents begin to interject into those children, and they say, what do you think? We're made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees. You don't need that. All you need is this. And we hear it thousands, if not millions of times before we actually get into our 20s. And we don't necessarily just hear it from our parents. We may hear it from religious education. We might hear it in school. We might hear it from higher education. We definitely see it in music, in literature, on television. It's everywhere. And sometimes it's directly stated. Other times it's indirectly stated, but the concept of this idea is there. And that is, don't take more than you need. Now, ask yourself if what I'm about to show you is true. Most people have a need story. Now, this is also based on a person's perception, because you could live in the same neighborhood as somebody else, and one person, their perception is that they need a little bit more, yours is that you need a little bit less, and you live right next door to each other. And you both will sit down and justify what it is that you need based on your own perception of what you need for your life. But the income doesn't really change that much. So a person will have this. Now, what I want you to do here is put down the amount of money that it takes you to pay your bills on time every month. And just for an example on this board here, I'm just going to put $5,000 down. Let's say a person has a monthly nut of $5,000. Now, here's the thing. If they have a monthly nut of $5,000, usually what ends up happening is they started off somewhere when they came out of school, they started a job, they got up to this place. This need story of $5,000 had something to do with how they were brought up and what they actually need for the time of life in history that they're actually living their life. That means that they will spend the rest of their life either a little bit above this or a little bit below it. But it's rare that you see somebody shoot way up here. It's also just as rare that you see somebody shoot way down here. Now there's a space between the poverty line and the bottom of this chart, because this poverty line here does not represent being homeless or being destitute. That would be someplace down here. When we're talking about this amount of money, you run into this interesting phenomenon. People would love to make more money, hence the way people play lotteries, all over. I don't think anybody would not want to make more money. But what generally happens is this: a person will set a goal to make more money, and they will get it up a little bit. And as they do, they reach some point of fatigue, and before you know it, it comes back down here. It's either at the same line or it's at a line just a little bit lower. They'll wait for a period of time and they'll try it again. Maybe they get it up a little higher, but they will reach a point of fatigue and it will literally come back down again. So what's the problem that's happening? You might say, well, it's the fatigue. Could be. It definitely could be, because usually when a person has not really understood wealth or how to build it in their life, their principal value for increasing their income is to work harder. Now, hard work is an ethic that most of us have been taught. And I'm not saying that hard work is bad, but the interesting thing about making more money is that the more you make, the less hard work actually plays into the picture. You literally, if your only tool in your toolbox is to work harder, you reach a point of diminishing returns because you can't work any harder. And primarily what a person in one way or another is doing is they're trading time for money when they're actually working from this line. Now, every so often we see somebody just smash through this. And even though they smash through it, they reach the same conclusion as somebody who struggles just below it. They'll stay above it for a little bit period of time and they come back down. So now what we want to know is what is actually causing this. So let me clean this up just a little bit. And let me see if I can explain this in this period of time. What is it about this wealth story that would cause a person to literally start to come back down? They're smart, they're intelligent, they know what they're doing, they have a great inspiration in life to be able to break through this, and yet they start off and they only get so far and they come back down. One of the things that I've been hearing for months and months now is the COVID virus. Like, people are trying to get it up, but they hit the limitation of what our current situation is, and it causes them to come back down. So here's what I want to suggest. Anything that you would experience that would cause your income to come back down after you're trying to get it up has nothing to do with what it is that you're experiencing. It has everything to do with what is built into this story that a person is actually avoiding in order to actually break through it. So I'm going to go back to the stick person, and I want to show you something. In our subconscious mind, we have, whether or not we're good or bad, programmed in there. That means we have values, we have ethics. Nobody really wants to be a bad person. People actually want to be good. The problem is that we have a very mixed message when it comes to actually making more money. Most individuals, especially when they're living at that need line, have programmed in their mind that at some point of earning wealth in their life, they start to become not a good person. They're literally breaking the society or familial rules around what it is to actually earn money. And it's actually a subconscious trigger that happens here that goes up here and it tells a person to stop. So I'm going to show you something. If you don't take anything away from this other than what I'm going to show you right now, you'll be much better off for having been here. We have what we call a stopping strategy. This is a sabotage strategy that everybody follows when they end up sabotaging something. And here's exactly the way that it works. You set a goal. Because of what we're talking about today, we're going to say it's to increase your income. And you do the thing that you're programmed to do. You start working toward that goal. As you start to work towards this goal, you begin to move out from what's comfortable for you and you begin to do new things. Maybe you're increasing prices. Maybe you're trying to get more clients. Maybe you're trying to expand the business from within, leverage from within that the service that you give, and you're starting to get results. These results could either be negative or positive results. You're witnessing the circumstances of how you're working, and you're working within your environment. Your environment is made up of people, places, and things. Now, as we begin to do this, this information is coming back into our conscious mind. So as a person does this, I've never seen this not happen in 22 years. The second a person sets a goal, inevitably something will happen in their life, we call it some kind of a circumstance, that will cause them to take their focus off the goal and put their urgency on the actual problem that they're experiencing in life. The problem that we have now is COVID. That's the one that's affecting most people in very much the same way all over. The only thing that's different about it is the circumstances in which a person is actually experiencing this. But when a person experiences any problem that seems to have more urgency than the goal itself, they take their focus off of this goal and they put it on whatever is urgent. The question is why? Because the second we put our focus on what's urgent, we're kicking in the subconscious mind. And of course, the subconscious mind, the only thing it's designed to do is to keep you alive. It wants to keep you safe. So there's 3 human needs that we're born with that are actually affecting this idea. We have love, security, and we have self-esteem or significance.
Let me share an exciting tool that I recently came across that is a game changer for law firms that bill hourly or by the project, otherwise known as flat fee billing. The 2020 Legal Trends Report published by Clio rates how important various items are in a client choosing your firm. You may be surprised to know that the third most important decision factor for someone choosing a lawyer is the ability to pay with a payment plan. The challenge that law firm owners face is the risk of a client not making good on that payment plan. Most attorneys don't offer payment plans because of that. The problem is now solved with LawFunder. LawFunder allows you to easily add a payment option to all your client invoices and retainer replenishment requests that does not require credit checks, applications, or any other complex process. The client's able to use their existing credit cards, allowing them to earn points and miles, access credit card specials on interest rates, and any other tools they use to manage their cash. When I saw this tool, I was blown away. Most importantly, it removes all the risk from the law firm and makes an easy and painless process to the payment process. So if you want to check off the box on one of the top factors in new client decisions, if you want to decrease your accounts receivable and get paid immediately, LawFunder is the solution. Go to lawfunder.com. That's lawfundar.com/profitwithlaw to learn more. This podcast episode is sponsored by Legalese Marketing. No buzzwords, no jargon, no BS, just results to make your law firm grow. That's Legalese Marketing. Legalese Marketing is a full-service marketing agency for lawyers by legal experts and digital advertising specialists. Their goal? To help your firm stand out in a competitive marketplace with personalized solutions to help your law firm attract the clients you want, backed by the systems to make it all work correctly. Visit profitwithlaw.com/legalese to learn more. This podcast episode is sponsored by Noda, powered by M&T Bank. You went to law school to be a lawyer, not an accountant. Take advantage of Noda, a no-cost IOLTA management tool that helps solo and small law firms track client funds down to the penny. Enjoy peace of mind with one-click reconciliation, automated transaction alerts, and real-time bank data. Visit trustnoda.com to learn more. Terms and conditions may apply.
Security is the number one thing from birth that becomes the most important. The reason it becomes most important is because in the early years of our development, if we didn't have a parental figure there, we would die. That's an absolute fact. So nature in its infinite wisdom has built in something into our DNA that causes us to adapt to that problem so that life itself can survive. Not just human beings, but all life operates this way. It has to communicate some way and be in touch with the thing that's going to help it survive till it gets to the point of actually being able to take care of itself. So that security, the way that we experience that as children, is love or connection, okay? You can call it either one, but the idea is that we're in some kind of connection with the parental figure so that we're actually getting our needs met. When we get our needs met, this heightened sense of urgency around security levels down and we feel calm. So you see baby goes from screaming to being very peaceful and loving, and it feels secure in its life, in what it's experiencing. When we start to set a goal and we go out away from what's already known, immediately we're uncomfortable. Because what are we doing? We're stepping out into the unknown. Why is that such a problem? Because the subconscious mind is designed for pattern recognition. It has millions of patterns that it has already recognized based on all the years that you've been alive and the things that you regularly do, and it instantly knows what to do. It instantly knows to slam on the brakes if the light turns red or if the car stops in front of you. Think about this. If the car slammed on its brakes that is in front of you and you had to stop and go, I wonder if I should put on the brakes. Too late, you already hit the car. So it has to react instantaneously when this happens, faster than we can consciously think about it, because it's all about preserving life. So when we start to step out away from what's comfortable, we're heightening the idea of security. We're not as secure as we were. And the further we start to get away from that comfort zone, and in this case, it's the need line, the need story of how much money you need to make every month, our mind goes, okay, we need to be aware here because this is unfamiliar territory. We do not have a pattern that knows how to deal with it. We're relying on our ability to logically think and make decisions. But the truth is that the more we get away, the more emotional we are, and the more our subconscious mind is telling us how to think about what it is that we're experiencing. This is why you can have two people be in the same reality and have completely polar opposite experiences. And when it comes to money in business, you can have one person that sees nothing but opportunity and they go out and build an 8-figure business. The other person, all they see is risk and the chance of everything falling apart, and they do nothing. They stay the same. This is the reason why you have people that are at the need line, and some people break through this and others don't. So what is the insecurity that's being presented here when we literally want to break through this? It is the story that gets engaged about wealth from a negative perspective when we go above this line. Now you might think to yourself, well, I'm not aware of any negative story. Most people aren't. So what is happening here? Well, the need story, what does that do for the average person? It keeps us safe. It keeps us secure. It also does something else. It basically hides us from the world, meaning that people that we know see us, but nobody really sees us all that much. So we're relatively safe. If you started making more money, if your annual income became your monthly income, it would be very, very obvious to all of the people that are around you that something was vastly different. Now let's just try something. Try this little metaphorical idea and see how this actually feels in your body. If you were to get all your family members, all your friends, relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody together, have a big dinner party. In the middle of the dinner party, you stand up, ting the glass, and say, listen, I have an announcement that I want to make. I have decided to become unbelievably wealthy. Now just feel for a moment what that actually feels like in your body. Very often when I do this in live events, most of the people in the audience, they crack up because they know instantaneously how well that would go over in a large group of people that actually know them. So what is it that we know? We know that we're going to be seen. We also know that we're most likely going to be judged. Your subconscious mind does not have a pattern for dealing with this. So it deals with it the way that it always has, where it comes back down here and it says, be safe and don't be seen in this place. You want to do this where the pressure's off, right? So everything's okay. And then what do we say? Well, I really don't need a bigger house. I don't really need a bigger car. Everything's pretty cool, actually, the way that it is. Life's not that bad. And we begin to justify and rationalize to our mind why we're actually stopping. Now, I have always thought to myself, what's really fascinating about that idea is that when you see a person have a failure, you have to understand something that's actually pretty profound about this. Number one, nobody actually fails. Now I'm talking about business. Nobody actually fails. What happens is they quit because they become unresourceful and they don't know how to move beyond the challenges that they're currently having to actually win. So I'm going to show you something. There's a law, it's a universal principle. It's called the law of polarity. It exists throughout the entire universe without question. And this law is responsible for solving more problems. Well, it's basically responsible for solving every problem that we've ever had. Think about this for a second. Just wherever you are, look around. Look at the camera. Look at your computer. Where did it come from? Where did all the things that were created by human beings come from? Well, here's what we know. They first had to be an image in the mind of the person that created them. But where was it before it was an image? It was knowledge that's already in the universe. See, all the knowledge that ever was or ever will be is 100% present in all places at the same time. When we lived in a cave, we had the knowledge to be able to move to a condominium or create the condominium, but we didn't know that at the time. But through the evolution of the human mind, and the more we understand, the more awareness that we get, the more awareness that we get. Because all of that knowledge is already here, we have to understand another principle that will allow you to solve any problem or turn any situation into a dire situation or one that has the potential to lose to something that actually wins. So let's look at this law as it would pertain to money for a moment. This would be the negative side of the law, and this would be the positive side of the law. So again, it's the law of polarity. This would represent poverty, and this side would represent wealth. Now, these are polar opposite sides, but they're polar opposite sides of what? What are we actually working with here? We're working with abundance. The universe is abundant. Everything that we need is abundantly supplied throughout the universe. So when we're experiencing lack of any kind, I'm not saying it's not real to what you're experiencing. It's totally your reality. You know, if you have bills sitting on your desk and you don't have enough in your bank account to pay those bills, that is a reality that you're experiencing. And you would be experiencing this loss somewhere on this side of the line. You're not in abject poverty, but you're experiencing some hardship that has moved you further away from wealth and in the direction of poverty. But here's the wild thing about this law. You have polar opposites of the same thing, abundance. Now look at this. I'm going to hold this marker up. The marker has a left side and a right side. It has a top and a bottom, an up and a down, an inside and an out. Whatever side I am perceiving can't exist without the other side. But the whole thing together is the whole thing. It's complete. Everything in the universe is created in a completeness, right? So I like to say God created everything whole. We have something that no other life form has, and that's an intellect. Our intellect has faculties or factors, and those factors allow us to perceive things in fractions. We can perceive half of something. I can perceive half of this marker. If I took a saw and I cut it in half, I will have successfully divided this marker into two pieces, but in its completeness, it's one. It's one thing. When we're looking at what we call the truth, because when we have a problem, what we really want to know is the truth. We don't want to know just what one side is being represented in our mind, because that's our perception of what it is that we're looking at. If you bring somebody who thinks differently into the same problem, they'll be looking at the problem, but their perception may be completely different. And because their perception is different, it gives them different choices. And if you have different choices, you can get completely different results. So if I'm experiencing this on the poverty side now, and I think to myself, I want to increase my income, but all of the information that I have that I can see with my eyes, with my intellect, is I'm only looking on this side of it. I'm looking at the bills on my desk, not enough money in the bank, not enough clients coming in, or problems within my firm where I can't actually do certain legal proceedings because of the COVID thing. All I'm seeing is what's on this side of this law. But if I think to myself, if I remember, wait a minute, bring the law of polarity in this and let it help you solve this problem. What is it doing? It's showing you that the opposite side over here has to exist at the same time in the same place as this side. In other words, you can't have a problem without a solution at the same time in the same place, because they're connected. Every problem and every solution is connected. You're not looking at two different things. You're looking at two different sides of the same thing. Now, this might kind of rattle your brain for a minute, because our eyes play the illusion that, don't tell me that there's money, because there's no money. Don't tell me there's clients, because there's no clients. That is how we're perceiving it, because we've been so programmed to look at what's wrong with something or why we can't do something, that becomes our reality. And what I've done for 22 years with people is showed them how to think in a way where they can perceive the other side as well, because the other side has to be here. This is where the possibility of you turning your annual income into a monthly income exists. It exists with you. It exists in you. It's in your world right now. And that's why you could actually do it this month, because it's in the same place at the same time. What might keep you from knowing that? Well, maybe certain rules that you have running around your mind. You're assuming, and you've created a belief that maybe people won't spend that much money, or there's not enough of them out there, or there's this problem that you can't get past. All of those things may be true from a statistical perspective, but they're not true in the whole scope of the truth. The other side has to absolutely exist. What causes us to move to the other side? That's the part that even gets this even more fascinating. So let me bring up this board again. If you have not experienced this, I'm sure you know somebody that has. Most of the people that I have met in life have experienced this, and experienced it in a way where they really did not have any idea what the hell they were really experiencing. Let's work with the poverty story for a second. Now, how many of you have been in a situation where there was some kind of hardship that caused you not to be able to make your monthly nut because this hardship showed up? Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you got fired. Maybe you had a car completely break down. Maybe there was an emergency hospital bill that showed up where you ended up having to take money that was supposed to go to your normal bills and pay something else because of an emergency. And in that month, something else didn't get paid. Maybe the light bill didn't get paid. Maybe an insurance payment didn't get paid, whatever it might be, but it didn't get paid. How many of you have had this happen more than once? where it starts to get a little scary because whatever the circumstance is, whatever the tragedy you're having in your life is big enough or lasting long enough that it's affecting you more than just 1 month or more than just one bill. When we're experiencing that in that moment, we are in fear. And when we're in fear, our mind is so focused around the things that we don't want to experience in life, that's all that we can see. And we're thinking to ourselves, my God, if something doesn't change, I'm going to go below this line and I'm going to actually be homeless. That's the kind of idea that we'll start thinking in our mind. But then, how many of you have experienced this phenomenon? The closer you start to get to this line of extreme circumstance, or what we call the cause and effect, like the cause is you don't have the money, the effect is they're going to start taking your stuff, right? As you start to get close to this line, all of a sudden, out of wherever, money starts to show up. Maybe you get an unexpected tax refund. Maybe you find $50 in last winter's coat. Maybe you get a check from grandma from your birthday. Whatever it might be, it's just enough, and it shows up just in time to be able to take the pressure off in this moment. Like, I've really never met anybody that has not experienced this in one way or another. There's something fascinating that happens. The closer we get to this poverty line, the more we move from fear to urgency. When we move from fear to urgency, something different happens. We go from, oh shit, if something goes wrong, to it has to happen now. It absolutely has to happen now. But what's causing that urgency of it absolutely has to happen now? Interestingly enough, the way that we don't want to be seen in a negative light up here, we also don't want to be seen in the same negative light down here. Meaning that if you can't pay your light bill 1 month, who knows? Nobody knows. You know, the electric company knows, but nobody else knows. None of your family knows, none of your extended family, no friends, nobody knows. But if you start going further down towards this line, all of a sudden people start knowing. They'll start calling friends and relatives, and they get that call. They're like, we can't tell you who we are, but have you seen this person? Well, everybody knows that that's a bill collector. Worst case scenario, they start taking things out of your house, or they actually kick you out of your house. They take your car, like it's real. Real stuff starts happening. And because we don't want to be seen having made that kind of a mistake or an error in our life, the pressure of not being seen is actually more horrible than the idea of it happening, that we literally go into urgency and we start to come back up here. It's where we'll go into massive action. It's where we'll take different action. We'll take a chance. We'll make a different choice. It's the place where you're like, that's it, enough. I can't do this anymore. It has to change, and it has to change right now. That's urgency. That's when it starts to come up. So here's the question. The only thing that changed in this scenario was your mindset and the emotional state that you were in the moment. You went from fear, which was kind of paralyzing, to urgency, which moved you into a completely different action very quickly. When that happened, you went from this side of the line to this side of the line. And you did it just like that, instantaneously. You went from not having it, you went from not seeing it, to seeing it, to having it be there, to having that you could actually use it. You could do something with this, because both sides exist at the same time. And this law, by the way, applies to everything. A person can use it for good or bad. We could say this is bad, and we can say that this is good. And very often you'll hear somebody say, well, think positive, right? Something bad happens in a person's life. They end up over here, and they're like, think positive. And you say, I can't see any good in this thing that happened. Maybe you lost somebody, maybe a spouse left, somebody in your family passed away, you lost a pet. You're like, there's nothing good about this. I can't see anything good about it. What's actually happening? You're so emotional about the situation that you're in that it's controlling your entire perception, and you can only see things that are on this side of the line. But generally, when we get some distance from those things and we're not as emotional and we can actually think clear, we can also see what's on the other side of the line. You might be thinking to yourself, well, what are we dealing with if these are the polar opposites of each other? We're dealing with truth. What's the truth? The truth is, we didn't come to this planet or be born and somebody gave us a manual and said, here's the meaning of everything in your universe. Human beings decided how and what to give meaning to. So it is what controls our experience. What controls our experience is the meaning that we give to something. If you want to change the experience that you're having with something, you can change the meaning of that experience, and bam, you instantly change the experience that you're having. You change the meaning, you change the experience. When we're on this side of the line, urgency begins to change the meaning of what we're experiencing, and instantly we go to the other side of the line. I'm telling you, I was broke. I was living, I had my wife and my 2 kids. We were living next door to a crack dealer. My car was repossessed. We were on welfare, had to leave our apartment in the middle of the night to go to a bad apartment because that's the only place that we could go. I got such to a point of urgency that when I hit that point, everything changed. I tripled my income in 30 days. And I was like, what the hell? How could this even be possible? I had no education. There was nothing from the point of view of here's what you need in order for this to be able to happen. There was nothing. There was no education. I had a poor work history. I had been fired from many jobs. There was no reason that this should actually happen to me. But when I began to study, I came across something that really started to open my mind. A few years into this, I got a hold of, somebody gave me Think and Grow Rich. If you've never read Think and Grow Rich, you should get it. But right in the introduction, Napoleon Hill says something that explained the circumstance that I had to me. And then that's what led me to understanding this law. He said, when opportunity came, it appeared in a different form and from a different direction than he had expected. That is one of the tricks of opportunity. It has the sly habit of slipping in the back door and often comes disguised in the form of misfortune or temporary defeat. Perhaps this is why so many people fail to recognize opportunity. Now, if you're going to look for that in the book, it's in the introduction. What happened to me was I was so focused on this side, I couldn't see an opportunity. I only saw what really sucked in my life, the circumstances that were in my life. I totally created those circumstances, take total responsibility for it. I didn't know that then. What are you experiencing in your life? Is it COVID? Is it something that's changed in your industry? Is it that you've been stuck at a financial level for a long period of time? Is it your belief system that nobody will do the things that they need to do in order for you to break out of that? Because if it is, it's only the reality that you're experiencing, because if you change it, you instantly move to the other side and you change the experience. There was another book that I came across. It's called Working with the Law. It's about universal principles, and it's written by Raymond Hollowell. And he said something that really helped me understand how any of this can be true to begin with. He says, true desire represents the urge of life, seeking a fuller expectation of its fulfillment, and it brings to us the ways and the means for its manifestation. The principle explains no desire is felt until the supply is ready to appear, and no mind can be conscious of a need or a desire unless the possibility of its fulfillment already exists. It has to exist. It has to exist. Everything we need is already here. And the greatest, if there was any secret, I don't believe that there's secrets to success, but if there was a secret to success, it's consciousness. Whatever we're not conscious of, we will then have to live in the consequence of being unconscious to that thing. The whole universe operates by cause and effect, and it does not make any kind of adjustment for ignorance. Like, you could be the nicest little old lady in town. If you walk off the end of a building, you're going down. Gravity does not adjust itself because you don't know. These are laws that are absolutely sound. I've worked with every kind of business you could possibly imagine. It works with every business. And I've taken people that are literally broke and had them earning the equivalent of an annual income in a month and in a very short period of time. There's no reason that you can't do this, but you have to be willing to let go of some of your treasured ideas and beliefs and ways of doing things in order to be able to think to the other side. Now, remember something, because I know some of you are like, well, if it was that easy, everybody be doing it. And that's actually quite a sound statement. In order to even be able to think different about thinking the other side of this law, you have to be able to tolerate a bit of insecurity in your life, a bit of insecurity. A mentor of mine by the name of Leland Van Vanderwall once said that your success is the equivalent of the amount of truth that you can look at in yourself without actually running away. And that's the problem that most people have, because the idea was that mistakes should have been something that we learned to make that were actually good. Because if we don't make mistakes, we don't learn. But we learned very early on in our life, because of the way school is designed, that mistakes are not a good thing. So we become adults, and the one thing we want to do is avoid mistakes. We want to avoid mistakes because we don't want to look foolish. We don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing. Obviously, we don't want to have any nasty consequences of a mistake. But we're talking about here the willingness to step out of being comfortable, where you're stepping into a place where you're uncomfortable in order to be able to live your dreams. Whatever desire that you have inside of you right now, know this truth. It is here for a reason. You wouldn't have it if you couldn't actually experience it in your life. And to be able to experience it, it requires that you make a decision. Now Moshe did something fantastic. We have a free gift that we're actually giving you. It's called the Compassionate Conversion Sales Bundle, which teaches you how to have a conversation with somebody so that they literally will buy in any situation, whether it's COVID or it's a price increase or absolutely anything that could possibly be going on in a person's life. It's a different way of having a conversation because it goes to the root, to the heart of a desire in a person. And when you learn how to do it, and it's really easy, your sales go right through the roof. Again, it doesn't matter what the industry is in. So my team is going to also put it in the chat with the promo code for GROW, but you're getting it in your virtual swag bag from Moshe. So I want to thank Moshe for doing that, for supplying everybody with a copy of the Compassionate Conversion Sales Bundle. It will completely change your life, and it will teach you how to take what I've taught today and make it so that you can apply it immediately in your life and start seeing results. If you were to take that program and start right now, you could actually be well on your way by the end of the month of seeing your annual income become a monthly income.
Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.